What's going on, world? Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Command. It's your man, D Will, here in the building, man. Get ready to get this season on and popping. I'm super excited to finally have football again, man. The air is a little crispy. The team is getting talked about in an amazing light. Um, nationally with the darlings now, and it just feels good to do some content, some meaningful content. Finishing up last year with some great content and going on. Of course, last week's episode featured our guy Mike Callow from ESPN 630 AM, where you can check him out every day, 3 to 5 on the line change. I'll also be there with Mike tomorrow in studio starting at 3 p.m. So make sure you guys check that out, man. We'll be live. You can listen live on the Sports Capital DC, or locally. You can check it out. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about another guest from another ESPN station down 94.1 in the Tidewater area. I bring my buddy Scott Jackson in the building. Scott, what's up, my friend? How you doing, man? It's football time.
I know, it's great. You're mentioning the fall weather feel out there. I felt like that all weekend. The wind's blowing. It's football weather. And then, of course, I look ahead at the 7-day, and it looks like it'll be like 80s, higher 80s and warmer by the weekend. So it'll be the opposite of what we're dealing with right now. But now it's great, man. It's a good time of year. I mean, especially if you've grinded through this preseason with this team. We really haven't seen a whole lot, right? We never got to see the Terry Debo combo at any sort of moment. So, yeah, I'm excited to see it. I'm also a little, uneasy in a sense because we haven't seen it, right? And they haven't been together much in game situations. And the Giants had an excellent preseason. So we'll see if any of that matters come 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, man, we have a tough contest with the Giants. And I'll tell you this, when the schedule came out, I didn't gloss over the fact that we played the Giants first. For whatever reason, the Giants always give us great troubles. Whether last year where we had to score field goals to win, or in years previous where the Giants defense is like the 85 Bears and they seem to stop us every time. So, I didn't look over the Giants, and, having them first out the gate would definitely be a test. But before we get into that, Scott, I just want to remind everybody every day they can hear you on 94.1 in the Tidewater area, correct?
Yeah, Priority Auto Sports Radio 94.1. We're the ESPN affiliate down here. You can catch us on the app or online and listen. 3 to 7 most days. Some days I get out early if there's baseball, like tonight I got out at 6:30. But yeah, it's daily, and then of course after the Commanders games and at halftime on Sundays. Well, not a lot of Sundays, but a few Sundays this year, depending on whatever the Commanders are playing on the Commanders Radio Network, and of course myself and the mouth of the South, Fred Smoot, after every game. So that's always a lot of fun.
Now, I was going to say, I was like, Smoot got to be back with you this year again.
Oh, right? Yeah. Listen, I don't think I would do it if it wasn't Smoot on with me. I mean, it's we've gotten used to each other. I mean, even when, there was a long stretch where he wasn't the main co-host, but he was on an awful lot with me. We did pre-seasons together, and he grinded through with me. And so we've always had a lot of fun working together, did a lot of shows with him over the years. And, we enjoy it. We enjoy it.
Here we go. Okay, Scott, we back, man. My connection just went out.
Uh-oh. We lost you a second. Yeah, I was just going on about how great Smoot is. So if you can delete that part out, please do. I don't want him to see it.
Nobody will hear it because the connection went out. So everybody
good. I don't want people to know that I like Fred. I think the show's better. People think that he and I are always mad at each other.
Right?
He's great. He's a lot of fun, man. I love that guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So you and Smoot will be tag team in the post-game show on Big 100, man. It should be a good time again. But, Scott, let's get right into it, man. Yep. Week 1, we got the Giants coming to Northwest Stadium, man. A lot of new names, too, man. We got the Big Bear practice field park. I'm like, man, we got Northwest. Like, it's a lot of things going on. But we got the Giants coming to town, man. Your initial thoughts on this upcoming contest and how we will fare against the Giants, man?
Well, you hit it earlier. They're always a pain in the rear end. Like going back, I grew up in the Bill Parcells era where, he was the coach, and Joe Gibbs, as great as Joe was, Joe had some struggles with Bill in these Giants matchups. So those games have always been very challenging. And I look at, the Daniel Jones era. He couldn't beat anybody. He couldn't play well. He was, Steve Young against this franchise for some reason. It was very strange. So I never overlooked the Giants. As you mentioned, last year's first game, 7 field goals. Second game was a grinder up there. They're never easy. They're always tough. Look at them. Their front seven's incredible with the addition of Abdul Carter. They were good already. You know, Dexter Lawrence is all pro. You know, Brian Burns, for him, he had a down year, but he was still really good last season by a lot of other guys' standards. So, and Thibodeau's played well against the Commanders over the years. So I just think it's a matchup that's, you know, your offensive line's improved. You invested in it this offseason. Unfortunately, you won't have Sam Cosmi to start the year, but it'd be good battle for Tunsil, and you know, good matchup there. We'll be interested to see if they kind of move Carter away from him, or if he gets, you know, the kid, they try to put the kid on the All-Pro, you know, go in that direction or not. And I think that part of it's challenging. And, you know, like Russell Wilson's a pro. He came into, you know, Northwest Stadium last year, beat this team in Pittsburgh when he was the Steelers quarterback. I think you can't overlook, you know, Russ getting a start. And, you know, Tracy ran all over the Commanders last year too.
Yeah, he did.
You know, I mean, they didn't stop anybody when it came to stopping the run for the most part last year. So I think I still want to see if this run defense is better. But yeah, the thing that jumps out is the Giants front with Carter in there. And of course, Malik Neighbors on offense last year, that first game against Mike Davis. Oh my God, it was so excruciating. Luckily, the secondary is a lot better. You know, but we got to see what the pass rush looks like. We got to see what this run defense is. It really better with the bigger, you know, the bigger D line. All those things it's hard to say because we really didn't see them. But in a few glimpses during camp, and you know, there was obviously not a lot of repetition during any of the preseason with any of those guys.
Yeah. Commanders come in 6-point favorites against the Giants, who I think, man, while people are kind of counting the Giants out, I mean, they're a good ball club. Like you said, that their defense is going to be tough. Their front seven is going to be tough to go against. And you don't know what type of Russell Wilson you're going to get. Like you got Russell Wilson that can throw up the moon ball. You got, you know, guys like Malik Neighbors that can attack the football and make a play. Like, who knows what this will be? I mean, ultimately, I feel like we will have the upper hand because we have Jaden. But it's just, man, you don't know what you're going to get. And then it's week 1, man. I think if there's going to be some surprises this week across the league, this is always where you'll find it because they don't show too much in preseason. You don't really, some guys are going to come out, you know, guns blazing. You don't really know what you're going to get from certain guys. And I think this could be, and I hate to call it a trap game, but I mean, this could be one of those games where if fans are overlooking the Giants, please don't.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I'm happy it's a sellout. Hopefully it's mostly burgundy and gold, you know, not blue and gray in there. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, you can't overlook it. And here's the thing. I mean, you goof around and lose this game, then you're going on the road on a short week to Lambeau Field. And now they got that monster over there, number 11 on defense. You know, that's a really tough spot to put you in. I mean, we all know about the numbers if you start 0-2 and those things. So yeah, this game's huge, man. I mean, I don't want to overdo it, you know, oversell it. You shouldn't have to, but there's a lot of older players in this team that really haven't cut the engines yet, you know, real hardcore. And that's another thing we got to think about. You know, they certainly throughout camp, you know, kind of took their time, you know, we're very careful with some of these players and with some of these vets. And, you know, be interested in depth, I think will probably be, you know, tested a little bit in the first few weeks. They'll probably have to play, you know, maybe some guys will get more reps, you know, just to keep those guys fresh and try to get them in game shape. But we saw a little bit last year. I mean, this team, they came out week 1 and they really weren't ready. You know, I mean, they looked a little bit out of shape, and defense, they admitted they didn't play a ton together at that time. There's, you know, a lot of the same faces coming back here on that defense, but there's also some newness to it. So, you know, again, hopefully they got enough work done with that one Patriots practice and the burgundy and gold scrimmage and some of these other things they did in practices, because it was really 2 series, and it wasn't even a completely full first team defense that was on the field against the Cincinnati Bengals. So, you know, I'm just, it's hard to like sit there and say with 100% confidence, yes, the defense is so much better, because we just, again, have not seen it. I think there's some pieces, the personnel you like better, but again, we got to see it in real time.
Live now with Scott Jackson of ESPN 94.1 down in the Tidewater area. Scott, man, you talk to a lot of people throughout the league and you know, on your airwaves. What's the sentiments around the league about you know, the sophomore slump or how the Commanders may perform this year, coming off that amazing season last year, as my daughter tries to climb through the frame behind me like nobody can see.
That's cute. You know, it's interesting. It kind of varies. I've also had some people say to me, hey, what if this guy takes off? I think one thing that people have come to realize, maybe that didn't know it going into last season, but coming out of this last year and then going into this year, because veterans just continue to say it over and over again. Laramie Tunsil last week, obviously Von Miller. I mean, all these guys that have just kind of gotten around Jaden Daniels for the first time. This guy's for real in his approach and everything he does. He's not cutting corners. It's not some show. I mean, he really is a guy who has a process that he goes through every week. He's all business. And I think they really respect that about him and understand that that's what's, going to separate him from being, a guy who's a flash in the pan or whatever, and then, slumps. I think that's a big part of it. And of course, what does this offense look like? Do they add more around him? Certainly we think Deebo Samuel's a huge addition, obviously keeping Terry in the mix, which, was never in doubt he was going to be here this year, was whether or not it was going to be with a long-term deal. So that's good. And obviously, hopefully Noah's healthy and can stay on the field right away. Jalen Lane will probably have a role at some point with this team. And, just again, can everybody, come together and raise each other up? I think he did a great job. Like, I don't think I thought a whole lot going into the year about Olamide Zaccheaus or, I didn't know if Dyami Brown would make a jump, but yet here's what happened, with Jaden as their quarterback. And I mean, I never thought I would be the worst part of the offseason for me was when Zaccheaus was gone. I was like, man, that's a bummer, man. I like that dude. I mean, I thought he was showing some upside, and then I watched him in Bears camp, and I'm like, crap, man, he's doing the same stuff there. But yeah, I mean, so kind of like, how do those other receivers develop? Not besides the top two guys and three, and unfortunately, with Noah Brown, kind of his history has been he's going to miss some time at some point or another, and so that's why it's really crucial, whether it be Lane or McCaffrey, or if they bring somebody in off the streets at some point, that they develop that other receiver there. And, like they had a great year with some of these vets, like Zach Ertz, right? Played all year, was healthy. That was not him for a bunch of years before that. So those kind of things, like you hope the depth, if they have to go to it's ready for those moments, whether it's Sinnott or, Yankoff or, Bates is obviously more the blocking tight end. He can catch the ball, but he's not going to, really mix it up a lot in the passing game. So those are the kind of things that, I look at and I wonder about. But going back to your first part of this is Jaden Daniels. I mean, I feel good about a lot of it because he is kind of like the equalizer and like he's the fixer, whatever you want to call him. I guess Smoot always goes in the force multiplier. I'm not sure that's some nerdy like Marvel comics crap. I don't really understand, but anyway, whatever.
He's
but yeah,
force multiply.
Yeah, exactly. Force multiply. But anyway, so he's all those things. So that's good. Like again, I think they'll run the ball well, which they did last year. I like the host of backs they have. I like that group. And so that those kind of things are exciting. But it all starts and ends with 5, as we know.
It's funny you mentioned the wide receiver position because I feel like the production that they lost, they didn't necessarily gain that back by getting Deebo, but I think they got a different type of player. Like, I think they didn't get wide receiver 2 in Deebo. I think you got more gadget, more a guy that can run the ball. I think you got that. But it's like you said, I'm curious to see where they're going to get that additional production from, whether it's from Noah Brown or whether, like you said, it's gonna be Jalen Lane or Luke McCaffrey can finally get in the game. But you look at what Dyami Brown did, and not just because he's a Tar Heel, I just thought he did well for us, you know what I mean, in certain situations. And then, like you said, with Olamide Zaccheaus and how they played. But the force multiplier is definitely Jaden Daniels. You know what I mean? I mean, you have a guy like that can play. And I feel like I don't want it to be wide receiver by committee or even running back by committee. But when you have him, I think it leaves opportunities for a lot of people to make plays that you may not even have counted on for them to make plays.
Yeah, he did a good job last year. You think about the games where they'd spread the ball around, and maybe to some of the frustration to the fan base in the early part of the season when McLaurin wasn't as involved in his first couple of games. And then, of course, game 3 happened against Cincinnati and on the Monday Night Football game where he made all the big plays and the great catches, the touchdown catch, the kind of the dagger TD in that football game. So, yeah, I just think whatever it takes to win each week is really what it has to be about. But the early part of this season, it might take them some time to kind of find their footing as a group, just because they just don't have the reps together. We haven't seen it a lot. And, the running back thing's interesting too. I saw the unofficial depth chart today. And, again, it is unofficial. But with Eckler, then McNichols, and then Rodriguez, and then Bill. Like, I think Rodriguez, though, will have a bigger role than maybe, we thought going into the camp for sure. After obviously they moved on from Robinson, but you think about last year, Rodriguez in that second Giants game was huge for them in the 4-minute offense. You think about him even in the Atlanta game in the red zone and gets that touchdown. And there's a Tennessee game where he had a really, really good game as well. So I think, I'm confident in Rodriguez. Bill's obviously the wild card in this whole thing. I don't think you can treat Austin Eckler like you could treat him 6 years ago when he was with the Chargers, in his prime. That's not going to be a good idea if you want him through the whole season. And again, last year, with kickoff returns, he got hurt. And I'm not surprised they're taking him off kickoff returns if that's really what they're doing, as again, the unofficial depth chart has it.
Unofficial.
Yeah, unofficial.
Right here with Scott Jackson, ESPN 94.1 down in the Tidewater area. We're just talking about the Giants versus Commanders week 1 and some possible outcomes. Like we said earlier, you do talk to a lot of different people, and you do have a good relationship with Fred Smoot, being his cohort for this many years. Talking to Fred Smoot, another alumni, after last year, how would you say that maybe the mood around the building or the mood around the organization has changed with Adam Peters, of course, the Harris Group owning the team, and Dan Quinn getting us to the NFC Championship game last year? What would you say that the mood is with whomever you spoken to and just around the league as far as to the Commanders?
Well, I think it's just night and day, right? Like, I mean, they're respected organization now. Just hearing from some of the guys that were in the other years, and they admitted, they're like, I didn't even know we were going to have, like, were we really serious about winning, right? Like, that was really an option at times, and it was just always something else happening, and just kind of the stability it brought. Again, if you miss on QB1, maybe we're not all having these glowing conversations about ownership and the GM, and we're like, oh God, more of the same. But, that's a big part of it. But I do think Quinn, and I had heard this before they hired him from multiple people that covered him in Atlanta and knew him personally. Like, this guy is the guy, like, legit, real dude, real leader of men, no BS about him, and you would come to see that. And clearly we did in a short period of time last year, what he was all about. So I think that was huge. And it was a great hire by Adam Peters. And, certainly spent all that time with Kyle Shanahan there in San Francisco. Like he said, he's admitted after, since he's been here, he had a really good file on Dan Quinn going into it because of Kyle and his time with Kyle. And he was a big believer in Dan. And even though maybe, the fan base and the national media thought, hey, Ben Johnson was the guy no matter what, that they really were seriously, considering everything, and especially Dan. So
you look at how that move, Scott, and I hate to cut you off, but you look at how that move. You look at how that move kind of stabilized the franchise. Yeah. Like, it wasn't the sexy pick. It wasn't the thing that everybody was clamoring for. When you realize that's kind of what you really needed. You needed somebody to come in and just kind of right the ship. And I think, if quiet is kept, I think that's what the last regime wanted with Ron Rivera. They wanted kind of somebody to just come and steady the ship and, keep it together, but win. And that didn't happen. And I think Dan Quinn came in, who was the guy that was kind of, the picked over, the last choice, the guy that, is just, came in with a relentless work ethic and really changed how this organization thinks from top to bottom. And you see how that permeates through the roster and through the changes, and how, like you said, how glowing people talk about Dan Quinn and his reputation around the league.
Yeah, and they got the number one hire in the GM, right? Peters was the number one guy on the board. They nailed that first, and that was so important to do it correctly. It's the first time they've really done that. Yeah. Hire a GM, let them pick the coach, right? Like, go through the process, not like, hey, you're the coach and you're the GM, or in the case of Shanahan, hey, you guys go hire Bruce Allen. I'll be there after that. It was like he was always in charge. It was never the right pecking order, or then have like, Scott McCloughan thrown in there with Gruden and Bruce was also like kind of backwards the way they did that. And anyway, they just never done it the correct order. But this, again, first time owner in the NFL, and Josh Harris understood that from his time in other professional sports, in particular the NBA, how the right process was, and he nailed it. And again, it's only 2 drafts in, but I think they've done some good things there. But it's going to take a while. I mean, clearly they're making up for some lost years with cleaning up the Rivera era drafts that have been a mess. I mean, geez,
bad, man.
They've aged so poorly. I mean, there's a few guys. I mean, obviously Quan Martin's been terrific, and Cosme they've already extended. But there's not many. I mean, there's it's few and far between that have really been hits there, and especially all the misses in the first round. Those are absolute killers. So again, it's early. There's still a lot of work to be done, but because they have this quarterback, they were able to kind of accelerate the process, clearly right away. But yeah, I mean, it's just a whole different world. I mean, people don't like that you talk to about the team, and they want to talk about the team now with you. And it's just, it's like a completely different place. I'm happy for a lot of the alums,
Yeah.
Like the older guys, especially who were in the great years of Joe Gibbs, like Doc and B Mitch and that crew that I know, and then had to live through this other stuff, where they were like, what in the hell are we doing here? And to see it, like this, the little things like the retirement of the numbers correctly, and going through all that. I mean, stuff that should have been done decades ago. Like, how's Art Monk's jersey not retired? I mean, seriously? I mean, just basic stuff, that you should have done a long time ago. So I'm just glad that they finally, again, have gotten, a situation that I really was at the point like a few years ago where I thought, man, this is done. I mean, this is like our life, we're just in this spin cycle of hell because we have this guy who can't get out of his own way as an owner and just gets in the way all the time. But I mean, really, that removal by the league, however you want to, they force him to sell or did he decide to sell, whatever it was, that was huge. I mean, without that, I don't think all the great hires in the world can fix it. I think it was always temporary, even when there was some good momentum here in the past under that owner. It was very hard. It just, you couldn't sustain it because he would get in the way. Cowboys running through the same type of stuff now at a different level. A better marketing package, obviously more personable guy. Yeah, he has Super Bowls, but let's be real, they were Jimmy Johnson's. But whatever. 30 years later, he's still trying to prove the world that he's the guy as much as Jimmy was, and they can't prove it because it's not true, and they keep getting in the way. But yeah, I mean, just the sale again. That was the big thing. Then again, for Harris to come in here and do what he did, not panic and do it all quickly. He took the year, and it was hard watching Rivera and the enemy's offense that last year, but. The fruits of the labor where you got the second overall pick and you got a top-notch GM who made a very good hire coach.
Absolutely. And football is one of those sports too, as we talked to Scott Jackson, ESPN 94.1 in the Tidewater area. Football is one of those things where like you see immediate returns on some of the decisions that you make, right? You see immediate responses to some of the things that you do, and it's so final because it's 17 games. It's not you don't get 162 of these like baseball. You don't get 82 games like basketball. You don't really have those many options. So like on a week-to-week basis, the decisions you make as front office, GM, and coaches kind of come to the forefront, and it leaves you a lot of space for criticism where you can be praised or criticized for the actions that you take. And the fact that they were able to really overcome and just Harris Group came in and put one foot in front of the other. It really made some smart decisions. I think they had a lot of leash with the fan base. Just the fact that they got Dan Snyder out, but the fact that they came in and then they hit the ground running and made some great decisions. It makes those guys look good. And then like we spoke earlier, you talk about the futility of some of those draft picks where you got guys that have been on 2 and 3 teams since being drafted here, or guys that aren't even out the league. Like, it's just crazy how it is. And you're like, was the evaluation that bad? Like,
right.
Like, I mean, I know it has to be a couple things. Like, the right actor has to get the right script and the right director in order for that to be a big motion picture. But you've seen a lot of movies where there's a great actor, but the script is trash or it's shot bad. You know what I'm saying? Or a lot of movies where the acting is bad, but the script is terrible. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's just so many different things. So for the stars to align for us, it's a beautiful thing. And as you can see to our enemies in the South, the Cowboys, how it's shaping up for them. And it looks like that may be the only recourse is getting Jerry Jones out of there. I've talked to any Cowboy fan I talked to, they're kind of fed up like we are, man. And they're just like, Jerry got to go, bro.
Well, I mean, you watch him, that presser after the Parsons thing. I mean, I'm looking at his son's face the whole time, just studying him. Like, what is going through this kid's head, right? Like, because it's your father, and he's built you this wonderful life. You're going to eventually have the keys to this kingdom, but you're like watching it like, we're missing a window here, man. What are we doing? Like, again, if you didn't think you were going to get a deal with this guy, you should have traded him before the draft. I mean, you would have gotten the real Herschel Walker type of haul for this day and age. But instead, they're like number one sounds great, but it's the Packers. They're going to be picking in the late 20s, maybe even the 30s, with that guy on their defense now. So it's just, it's just mismanaged. But hey, I'm glad it's somebody else for once. That is, and look, for a long time, I've been saying this even just in this city and in the DC, among the DC franchises. And it's really true for the NFL. Like, there's a lot of really crappy owners out there. I mean, but Dan Snyder took a lot of the headlines from all of them I mean, there's some really bad ownership groups or owners in a lot of major sports, but he was so bad at it and just had no way. He didn't know how to communicate with the media or didn't even try to after a while that, he was like a feeding frenzy on him all the time. He was the easy guy to go after because he did so many things, on and off, the field, obviously, but yet in this division alone, like you look at how terrible the Giants have been. I mean, my God, since the Coughlin era, it's embarrassing how bad they've been, how many coaches they've come and gone. Last year's Hard Knocks episode made them look really bad with the way they handled the Saquon Barkley situation and what, John, with, Mara and that whole thing. And it was a disaster. The whole get-go and the Joe Shane's kids, the only one telling the truth in the room saying, Dad, you got to get your quarterback. I had the job one time. It was so perfect, but, and then like the Cowboys situation, obviously, gets shaded out by that. And, Cincinnati, we see them doing what they're doing. It's just like, okay. But, again, Snyder was the number one headliner guy because he just was just so bad at it and just, trying to be combative and run these like, almost like he was running a campaign, a ground attack, trying to divert your attention to some other stuff that's unimportant and had nothing to do with winning. But yeah, I mean, it was wild, man. It was a wild time to think about it now. As each day goes by, it's almost like, God, it was like a really awful dream that just went on for 2 decades.
Terrible. It was
terrible. Went on for 2 decades.
It was terrible, man. The team is fun to watch. I enjoy it now. And it was funny that we mentioned this, but did you happen to see any of the David Mulugheta interview today with Stephen A.
Mulugheta? Yeah, I did see that with Stephen A. Yeah.
I mean, just debunking like pretty much everything that Jerry said. And I think they made a great point about negotiations and really trying to do it on the up and up. I mean, you got these guys that are now going to be making a whole lot of money in the next couple years, and to try to weasel your way to get them, because essentially what it sounded like, he was trying to get Micah to make a decision with in principle, without actually, without getting paid the proper way, like how the other top end guys are. And it sounds very shady and it sounds something on brand for Jerry Jones. But just to kind of hear what he was talking about, it was just, it's crazy. And this stuff happens all the time. It's just that with the Cowboys, it's to the front.
Well, here's what's wild. The previous owner for the Cowboys was just as sleazy. I mean, he's the guy that made them cross the picket line or they were going to lose their pensions, right? He threatened them, like, you're going to lose everything if you don't cross the picket line. And that strike year in 87, when, the Redskins were the only team that didn't have guys cross the picket line. They had a few guys that thought about it. Joe Gibbs said, don't do it, because he knew it was going to make them stronger coming out the other end if they all stuck together. And yeah, I mean, you think about going back on that, and I talked to some guys that knew players that played with the Cowboys in that era. They're like, oh yeah, they were completely, they had no respect for their players outside of a handful of them. They did that kind of, this kind of underhanded crap all the time. Like basically blackmailed them to get on the field or else. And so that's why Dorsett and Randy White, all these guys are playing. In that famous game now, Tony Robinson's quarterback, and the Redskins to the Monday night win.
It's crazy.
It's wild to think about, but so there is a lot of that goes on. And I mean, again, as we find out all the time with the NFL, like the AAV doesn't mean anything. It's all about the guarantees and the contract. That's why when the McLaurin contract dropped, it was suspicious to me immediately that there was no discussion of signing bonus, outside of the guarantee money outside of the signing bonus. And they talked about the average annual value, and I was like, that's not really. That doesn't seem right. And
were you ever concerned about Terry not being back?
I don't know if I was concerned about him being back, but I just thought the longer it drug out, like Parsons' situation, where you're like the game week or a week before the game, could you get him ready? I mean, that was my concerns. To see how he would, if they'd give enough time, and hopefully we'll find out if this is enough time, or if they're going to have him on a snap count or what, or how they're going to handle him. You can tell me he's in great shape and all that stuff, and that's fine. There's been other guys that have been too, but then they get hurt right away. Now, we'll say this: last year we saw CeeDee Lamb miss, I think almost all of it, right? He came in and had a great season for Dallas. So hopefully that's the case. You don't want a Brandon Ayuk situation where, he comes out, it was terrible dropping passes early in the season and then blows his knee out. That there's the last possible thing you want to see. So, I mean, I never thought Terry wouldn't play. I just wasn't sure if they were going to ever find the sweet spot. Because again, it's tough because this organization, the new organization, they don't air the stuff out publicly. Like
Yeah.
there's no leaking with Peters, and it's funny to hear other people I talk to, they get frustrated with that, but that's really the right way to run the business. I mean, he is, as much as he is a guy that was in San Francisco with Lynch, we always have to remember he was part of Patriot Way in the early days, like the best years of Patriot Way. I mean, that's, where he was really cutting his teeth in this league. So I see a lot of that, with the way he does it. He's got a lot better personality than Belichick, of course.
Absolutely.
He's great on mic. He answers your questions, but he's not going to give you any more than he needs to. And I respect it. And he's consistent. I mean, as long as you're consistent, you're not one of these guys that tells the local media nothing and then is like whispering in Adam Schefter's ear, like Mike Shanahan, for example, or one of those situations. You have your like personal, newsbreaker guy. So I always thought that was the tough thing about trying to read the McLaurin thing was, okay, we think we know what Buddy Baker wants. As time went on, we found out more, right?
Yeah.
And what McLaurin wants, but we had no idea where the Commanders were on this thing outside of whatever, the other back channel people were telling us. I mean, but it wasn't like ever going to come directly from them. So, yeah, I mean, that was interesting. And I think it was an important, as much as we were like, hey, we're all happy for Terry and all that stuff, that was a very important negotiation for Adam Peters. Because there's a really good chance if Laramie Tunsil is the dude we think he is, he's going to be at his door. Yep. His agent's going to be at the door next year wanting to redo that. You got Debo coming up. You got a lot of guys on 1-year deals. You just can't get in the habit of just, giving up every year, like new, like, oh yeah, 2 years ahead of time. Like sometimes you just got to let the process play out. So I think he did really well for himself with this thing, all that being said. So, and that's good for the organization. And I think in the end, the player's happy with what he got too, which is important as well.
No, absolutely. Here was Scott Jackson from ESPN 94.1 in the 757. As we get ready to wrap this thing up a little bit, I know we talked about the offense and we talked about the running back room. Quick question for Scott. Do you think we will have 1,000-yard running back this year with Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez, and Bill? Do you think we'll have 1,000-yard running back this year?
I don't know. I think it's going to be tough. Plus, you got to factor the quarterback in, right? He was the leading rusher last year.
What if he gets the 1,000?
Well, I think they'd prefer that he had less yardage rushing this year, right? Like they'd like more passing yards than rushing yards, just to save his body. But yeah, that's a tough one. I feel like they're going to go committee early. Maybe Bill separates later in the year if anybody's going to separate. Maybe, but yeah, I would probably say not as likely to have 1,000-yard rusher just based off of the way I think the script's going to go early in the season. And again, the quarterback is a big part of that too.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, man, like we said, I think it might be more of how it was last year, running back by committee. But you know what? Running back by committee got us to the second to last game of the season. So I'm okay with that, man. Just a little bit more consistency this year. Before we wrap up, Scott, let me just ask you, man, what do you think? I mean, last year was a stretch, finishing in NFC Championship, going on an amazing playoff run, beating some amazing teams late. What do you think might be the outlook for this team this year? Realistically, how many wins, how many losses? Will they be able to repeat as they head to the road to Levi Stadium this year?
Yeah, 12 wins last year was really good. This year, that would be a hell of an accomplishment with this schedule. I mean, you look at the teams, they play some heavy hitters on this schedule. That would be really tough. I mean, I could see a scenario where they have fewer wins, but yet are better, in a sense, and are better set up for the next season as well. I still think the Eagles are really good. It's going to take a lot to knock them off. If they're, and again, all this, with all these teams, knock on wood, is about health. And if all your people, I just think they're deeper. Their roster's deeper. They probably have more depth to handle any potential losses. But I'll tell you what's a big thing for the Eagles, and it's been written about a ton, and is the Barkley season. Coming off the year he had and the workload, guys just don't do that back-to-back. Like, you can't expect that to happen. But, again, they've got A.J. Brown. They've got Devonta Smith. They've got, they got a lot
offensive line is amazing, man.
Offensive line's amazing. They got a lot of different ways they can come at you. Defensively, I think there's some questions over there, though. They lost some key pieces, obviously, with Sweat and Williams, and I don't know if they've really replaced it in terms of pass rush. So that's kind of interesting to me with Philly. But I'd still say they're the team to beat. I hate the fact that we got to wait till December to see the first matchup between them and the Commanders. It's really, what a terrible schedule.
That's a tough gauntlet too, man. When the games will count.
Yeah.
So you can't lose to them twice at the end of the season.
Right.
You
And
know,
then what? Well, I mean, here's the other scenario. Like, what if one of these teams gets ravaged by injuries and they're out of it? Then you got to put up watching like some lopsided crap 2 of the last 3 weeks of the season, which also makes no sense. I'm always for like months apart between division games, at least a month apart. Like so all things can be equal. If one team's hot at one point of the season and cold, it just I don't know. I just think it balances it better. But yeah, I think there's a scenario. I mean, again, a lot of this to me rides on what this defense is. Can they stop the run? Can they get pass rush? Like consistently. And last year I didn't see Dante Fowler having the year he had, so certainly I'm open my eyes to that. What version of Von Miller do we get? He was actually win rate wise excellent with the Bills last year. Just didn't have a ton of snaps. Will they be able to increase that workload for him, and will that equal production? Will maybe somebody else come into their own? I mean, Dorrance Armstrong ended the season on fire and played a great playoff. I think he's had a really good camp from everybody who's seen him every day. So I'm excited about that. I think he could have a big year for them too. But yeah, I mean, those are the things that kind of like I question about them. I don't think they'll bottom out by any means. I don't think we're like people are like, oh, what if they're like 5 and what? No, I don't see that.
They can't do that.
I don't see that. But I do think there's some fair questions to be asked, and again, a lot of it related around the depth. If they can hit that 12 number again, I think that'd be tough. I think more 10, 11 is maybe more likely, and they'll probably get you in the playoffs. But I don't. The division, you're gonna need some help from the Eagles, I think, to get that division too. You're gonna need some things to go the wrong way, and that could happen. I mean, off Super Bowls is tough. I mean, we laugh at the Chiefs and make our jokes about Taylor Swift and the referees, but what they've done is remarkable. I mean, it really is. I mean, yeah, they got embarrassed in the Super Bowl this year, but yeah, so what? They won.
Still got to get there.
Yeah, you get there. 4 out of 5 or 5 out of whatever it's
3 out of 5. I think they've gone
3 out of
like
5,
in the past. Yeah,
it's incredible.
That's ridiculous, man. I would love to be able to have that problem.
Right.
Where like, and then on top of that too, I was watching something today is that they're not talking about the Chiefs.
No, they're not.
And the Chiefs have earned the respect that you better mention them. They're talking about will Buffalo finally get over the hump? Will Baltimore get over the hump? And or will the Bengals play better? And they just all forget that the Chiefs have just crushed everybody's dreams in the AFC, in the logjam AFC, over the past 5 to 6 seasons. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that shapes up. And we talked about the bye week a few moments ago. I think it was like maybe 3 years ago we played the Giants and then had a bye week and then the Giants again after.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yep.
Oh my God, I hate
that was after a tie. Remember the tie in New Jersey, and then come back in that terrible loss, and Curtis Samuel's mugged in the end zone, and they didn't call it. But
oh my God, you remember that? Where he wore him like a backpack, Scott. That was crazy. Like, and we're gonna end here, but I just feel like, man, I cannot take the refs again, bro. Like, I feel like with a better quarterback, you get better calls, but like those plays.
Yep.
Like you can't have those things like that. And I think
Terry McLaurin was called for being offside. Remember?
After checking with the ref.
Guy goes like this. He goes like this. Yeah. It's crazy.
Gosh,
terrible.
Times were worse, and I'm okay. Those times are gone. Scott, man, of course, man, I appreciate you for being on the program. Please tell everybody again where everybody can catch you.
All right, absolutely. At Jackson Sports on the X, and again, Priority Auto Sports Radio 94.1. 3 to 7 Monday through Friday. Commanders post game with Fred Smoots after each and every game.
Hey, we love it, Scott. I appreciate you for being in the building with us. Another episode of the Breaking Command podcast, man. Let's hope to go 1-0 this week, man.
Right, got to go 1-0 before we can go 2-0.
That's it. Of course, man, when you're not listening to the Breaking Command podcast or Afternoon Kick that airs on Fridays, make sure you listen to Scott Jackson everywhere that he can be found, and follow him on X at Jackson Sports. I'll be live tomorrow with Mike Callow on ESPN 630. You can listen live on the Sports Capital DC or hear the replay the following day. But for my partner in crime tonight, Mr. Scott Jackson, it's your man, D. Will. And we will catch you another episode of the Breaking Command podcast. Peace. Let's get this dub.